I became friends with the old man because he was a prisoner in his own home, because he was tied to his big wheelchair, and because no one should be denied a glass of water. I became his friend after getting that new job that required me to take a shortcut through my old childhood neighborhood, when I still didn't listen to the radio nor knew the whole truth about Kirlian. It wasn't long before he asked me to kill the neighbor's dog.
In consideration of our radio listeners, an anonymous complaint attached to the Angry Neighbors sheet in the local police archives. There's a house like this in every neighborhood, in every town. There are almost a dozen in Kirlian. Front porches of houses that children avoid due to fear and adults due to wisdom. Houses inhabited by witches, monsters, and ogres. You are listening to the Kirlian Frequency.
Help me, were the first words I heard the old man say. I knew him by sight from when I was a child and had friends in the neighborhood. We were afraid of him. He always sat against the window, just on the edge. I thought he was an ogre and that he lived in a house of evil. The interior of the house was not as one imagined. Instead of children's bones piled up against the wall, of which I had nightmares when I was a child, there was nice furniture and a wall full of portraits. He asked if I could pour him a glass of water and explained to me that the kitchen door was very slim for his wheelchair and therefore he couldn't do it himself. He told me that his daughters-in-law never left enough water because they despised him. His children, his daughters-in-law, his grandchildren, everyone lived in the big house, although they spent the day out, studying or working. The ogre, whom the children of the neighborhood feared, stayed inside all day, enclosed, alone, and most of the time without water. From that day on, I visited the old man daily. I left the house early on my way to work in order to spend some time with him every morning, and we became friends. Some weeks after my visits began, he asked me to kill the neighbor's dog, because according to him, he would bark all day and it was driving him crazy. That was the first time I noticed that the dog would peek through the bars of the adjacent garden. I also warned him that despite the fact that the old man was obsessed with the dog, he had never seen it. I noticed it by the way he would describe it and by how the dog looked. A couple of months ago, some new neighbors moved into the house next door, then, almost out of the blue, the barking began. Every afternoon of every day, as soon as the old man was alone. "You're imagining things," his children replied. But the worst part, what really infuriated him, was being stuck in that wheelchair next to the window while the dog barked at him. I tried being empathetic and told him, at times he too is left alone, just like you. That had no effect. The old man hated that the dog only barked when they were alone, as if he wanted to tell him an impossible secret or laugh at him in his solitude. In time, the old man told me that he tried to find an accomplice before meeting me. He promised him 50 pesos in exchange for him to hit the dog until he stopped barking or was dead. The boy went to the dog's front garden, and the old man wasn't able to see what was happening. The stick hit the ground. The boy left running, and the old man never saw him again. With tears in his eyes, the old man begged me to finish the boy's uncompleted job. Tired of everything, I thought that I could frighten the dog without having to kill him, and that would calm the old man for a while. The dog backed away towards the door of the house, but didn't growl or try to attack. He looked me directly in the eyes, and I could almost sense a human side of him, much like the old man. And then I knew everything. I can't explain what I saw or felt, but I knew that there was something bad in the old man's house. I knew that there was something bad in Kirlian, or rather, lots of bad things, waiting their turn, hidden. And in some way, the dog knew it too. The old man got angry at me, started screaming, crying, begging me not to abandon him. I left and didn't see him for some time. Recently, about a week ago, I returned to the old man's house and found him very deteriorated, thin and baggy-eyed. He seemed to be 10 years older. He was more scared than angry, and above everything, he was inconsolable. He told me that the dog barked with even more consistency during the last few days, and that he hated him more than ever. That the barking had turned even more high-pitched and irritating, hoarse and constant. He not only barked when the old man was alone, but almost 24 hours a day. And he told me that 2 days earlier, the last time he heard the dog, the broken barks of the animal had now turned into a language. The dog screeched with the voice of an adolescent because he was still a puppy. He wailed with his throat shredded, like someone who has screamed for hours, days, and weeks. The old man looked at me. He held my hand to keep me from leaving and told me that the dog had stopped barking and started talking, and told him, "Your daughters-in-law want to kill you. I heard them outside on the patio. Get out of that house while you can." Immediately after the dog spoke, his owners left the garden, got him by the leash, and took him inside the house. The dog screamed, "You have to know! You have to know!" The dog only wanted to help him all this time, but the old man didn't want to listen to him. He asked me to help him escape the house, and I didn't know what to do. I apologized in the most awkward and cowardly way in the world. I told him I was late to work. I left. I escaped and never went back. During the next few days, I wanted to pretend that nothing had happened, that I had imagined everything, that Kirlian was no different from any other place. I was never a listener, but I discovered that everything was there if you paid attention. It was as if there were two Kirlians out there, the one that would listen and the one that preferred ignorance, the one that thought there was something wrong in the city and the one that knew. This morning, I saw it in the newspaper. It said that an old man had fallen down the stairs that separated the kitchen from the patio in the house he lived in with his family. Apparently, he was killed by his own wheelchair. He had suffered a forceful blow to the head. Supposedly, the oxygen tank that helped him breathe during the last few months had torn away from its compartment in the chair and struck him in the head. Unfortunately, the blow was fatal. But the old man didn't use an oxygen tank to breathe, let alone the fact that he couldn't get to the kitchen in his wheelchair. This afternoon, I returned to the old man's house and for the first time saw his family. It was daytime, and the house was full. They looked happy and comfortable and calm. My God. The neighbors told me they had put down their dog. He turned violent and wouldn't stop barking, screaming. I don't have any evidence of what I've just told you. No one will ever confess it, and the two principal witnesses are dead. The name of the family also doesn't matter. Although what they did is terrible, I feel that in some way they are protected. There are two Kirlians out there, and against one of them no one can do anything but stay alert. There's something that protects it, but I also believe that there's something trying to warn us, and that warning can come from something unexpected. A radio system, a dog that speaks, or...
Never walk against the wall on the sidewalk. The dogs, the insane, and the ogres are hunting those who are off guard. This is a special announcement from the Animal Protection Society and your favorite radio show, the Kirlian Frequency.